What happens to a dreamcatcher deferred?
Welcome to the angry Indian girl radio podcast. Decolonize your life. Welcome to the angry Indian girl radio podcast.
Anibojo, ANGR Squad. Sofia Syntaxx and Anishinaabe, meanwhile, Angry Indian Girl Radio Podcast. Hello and welcome everyone to the ANGR Podcast. I'm your host, Sofia Syntaxx. You may remember me from such productions as the Black Unicorn Cabaret and the Fun with Brazilian Portuguese Daily Speaking Challenge. We're recording live from my closet on Saturday, March 20th, 2021. Cutting it a little close with this month's episode because what can I say, fam? I am not okay. The hate crimes against Asian women in Atlanta, paired with general malaise and compassion fatigue from this seemingly never-ending pandemic, is starting to get me down. On the bright side, I'm home, I'm safe, and I'm with a partner that I absolutely adore. So for now, that's enough. Plus, I've got all of yous. Miigweetch for letting me join you in the intimate space between your ear holes. It's time to grab your headphones and a tasty beverage because the show starts now. The title of our third episode is Dreamcatchers, Cultural Appropriation versus Cultural Appreciation. We're going to unpack the traditions and origins of the Dreamcatcher, how it's being co-opted in modern society, and whether it's okay for non-native people to own one. Spoiler alert, yes, you can have a Dreamcatcher, but there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to go about it. Stay tuned until the end to find out how. I'm gonna be dead honest with yous, fam. I absolutely 100% would have skipped over the topic of Dreamcatchers had yous not specifically asked for it, just because it is so damn triggering for me. Let me explain. Whenever I bring up the subject of Dreamcatchers to a non-native audience, invariably there will be at least one person, usually a white woman, let me just be real, who has a very loud opinion about it or wants to play quote-unquote devil's advocate. Dealing with people like this is exhausting and I hate it. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I can only imagine what the going rate for a social media post would be. Podcasting is an auditory medium, so let me try and set the stage for you for a table read of some choice internet drama. All names have been changed to protect folks' privacy. It all began when a non-native friend sent me a photo on Messenger and asked my opinion. ANGR Squad, ooh, it was bad.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
It was a photo of a very fair-skinned woman with short dark hair, taken from behind. On the woman's back was a series of fresh surface piercings with 8 captive ball rings going around in a circle. Through the rings there was black string woven into a crude dreamcatcher, with 3 longer strings with feathers attached to the tips hanging off of the circle. I felt compelled to share it on my personal feed because it was just so bad. I'd never seen anything like it before. Allow me to share with you what I posted and a sampling of the responses I got. I wrote, just when I thought I'd seen it all. File under white people ween, facepalm emoji. I can actually hear this person now. Indian people don't own Dreamcatchers. Similar statement was made to me by a, quote, fashion designer who used feathers and war paint in their show. And all I can say is, actually, Karen, we kinda do. Dreamcatchers, while now almost a Pan-Indian symbol, actually did originate with my tribe, the Ojibwe. 50-50 toss-up that we'd also hear protests of my great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess. But I digress. This is honestly so cringeworthy to me, I don't even know if I'm mad. It's more just bewilderment and sadness for a person that is obviously so spiritually bereft that they are desperately trying to grab onto something, anything, to give their shallow existence meaning. I just want to ask them, who hurt you? Healthy, balanced, spiritually whole people don't do this. As my Nokomis says, this person is more to be pitied than censored, but that's just, like, my opinion, man. Shrugging person emoji. Miigweetch. So that was my post. Here is Becky's response. Read exactly as written to the best of my abilities. Dude, so tell me why this bothers you so much. Seriously though, this whole appropriation is dumb. We are all human. We all do weird shit. Every culture steals, borrows ideas from other cultures to make them different. Every culture! Throughout time. Through the centuries. Some cultures just change because a storyteller was old and just added their own shit to the pot because their memory was failing. It was only in the 60s and 70s when the Pan-Indians borrowed it from Ojibwe. How do you know for certain it originated there? It could have originated from the aliens in space in the 1300s, lol. Mine. My culture, me feelings, blah blah blah. It's usually only the white people shouting about it. White mutts. Do you realize appropriation is just another word for segregation? Separation. But seriously though, this whole American made-up appropriation thing is LAME. I'm done trying to type with one thumb about how dumb it is. What if she did that other weird thing and swung around by her skin from a giant dreamcatcher? Would that be appropriation, dumb, or cool? Guess it would just depend who you asked. Each to their own. Also, it should be a compliment. I shouldn't have to explain why. Or maybe I do, lol, but I won't waste my time. Go meditate on it. I was already reaching for my folder of reaction memes halfway through her tirade when something remarkable happened. Usually I face these online trolls alone, and it can be pretty brutal. What happened next blew me away. Someone else stood up and defended me. Adamanta, a white, non-binary woman with autism, wrote, Becky, when someone tells you about oppression and the harmful parts of it, the real asshole move is to dismiss what they are saying and gaslight them. Your ignorance is literally violence right now. Stop. Belladonna, a black woman, also had my back. She wrote, honestly, this post wasn't even a big deal. She commented on something she's annoyed by, and you've become enraged at the idea that there are things in life that you don't have a right to. I think your level of anger speaks more clearly to your entitlement than anything Sofia could have posted. I read both of these replies and literally stood up at my desk and clapped. Like, finally, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Y'all get it and just like, oh, thank you for doing some of that labor so I didn't have to. I was riding high, which was nice because the rest of the comments that followed were pretty dehumanizing. Some of the most egregious comments came from someone who, although I didn't know them very well, I was beginning to consider as a budding friend. We had met at an amazing Halloween party, and I was immediately drawn to their super spooky costume. We interacted a bit at the party, but they never dropped characters, so I hadn't really gotten a chance to know them outside of that environment yet. Which was probably why I didn't realize they were a blatant racist, or I never would have added them on social media in the first place. Sky wrote a scathing reply on my post, telling me that I was being too sensitive. I was so touched by my pals who took the time to craft very thoughtful and considerate replies to Sky on why their line of thought on the subject was mistaken and how hurtful their words were. I can't read them to use, unfortunately, because before I could grab screenshots, Sky did a dirty delete and scrubbed their comments from my post before unfriending and then blocking me. I never even got to reply to their original comment. It's really interesting to me now because I see Sky modeling for several Detroit small businesses that posted black squares and made statements in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement last June, but that's none of my business. What I've learned from similar exchanges is that many people don't really understand what cultural appropriation is, let alone why it might be wrong. While sometimes it's very easy to discern when something might be considered cultural appropriation, often it can be more difficult. I learned a long time ago that some adults do not appreciate hearing their treasured activity or behavior is wrong. The frustration of having to deal with inappropriate actions almost every day in my job sometimes tempts me to respond curtly, but a courteous, reasoned response has the potential to be much more impactful. A gentle conversation is more apt to promote change. I share all of this with you to drive home the point that Dreamcatchers are a fraught topic for me, which is a shame because they totally shouldn't be. Everyone dreams. Psychologists such as Freud and Carl Jung have tried to interpret dreams and our subconscious thoughts. Though these modern scientists have provided multiple theories and vast quantities of written analysis, they are by no means the first to have taken on this subject. Dream interpretation has directly influenced Native American culture and spiritual beliefs for centuries. American Indians believe dreams influence the conscious soul of the dreamer, oftentimes acting as a means for change in personality traits such as confidence, maturity, kindness, and loyalty.
Whoa.
Dreams have always been a fundamental part of Ojibwe culture and have many purposes, including prophecies, where dreams can show future events that will affect a tribe or an individual person. Spiritual leaders can receive the name of a newborn child through dreams. Many Ojibwe people pray, meditate, and fast in order to bring on dreams that will give them spiritual guidance through difficult times. Dreamers will often see a symbol that has personal meaning to them throughout their lives. Many Ojibwe make a charm to keep with them to remind them of the symbol. Some even take them to the grave when they die for strength in the afterlife. We think dreams are so important, especially in children, that we try to assist a child's ability to receive good dreams and filter out dark or negative dreams with the use of a dreamcatcher. At its most basic, a dreamcatcher is a handmade willow hoop on which is woven a net or web. The dreamcatcher might also include sacred items such as certain feathers or beads. Dreamcatchers are a traditional art form from the Ojibwe Nation. The dreamcatcher's web traps bad dreams or dark spirits, thereby allowing the good dreams to escape through a small hole in the center and find their way to you. Traditionally, they are hung over a cradle or bed as protection and are meant to give the user good dreams. A common modern tradition is to include totem animals and small stones or beads in the webbing of the dreamcatcher, and I have made several for my friends in this style for added personalization. I have always had my own dreamcatcher, and I have one now, lovingly made by my Anishinaabemowin, that has traveled all over the world with me, protecting my dreams wherever I have traveled. When I was a kid and bemoaned the in-your-face Indianness of my mother's interior decorating style, I begged her, please, can we have just one room in the house that isn't Indian? To which she replied, yes, your room. Take your dreamcatcher out. What? I gasped. No, I need that. Which brings me to our Anishinaabemowin word of the week. You may already know that some languages categorize nouns as male or female. We see this in Romance languages like Portuguese, French, and Spanish. Nouns also have gender in Ojibwe. In Ojibwe, all nouns belong to one of two classes of gender, animate and inanimate. Nouns referring to people, animals, trees, and spirits belong to the animate class of nouns. Some non-living things are also included in the animate class, although most nouns referring to non-living things are classified as inanimate. Basically, is it alive or is it not alive? This episode's word is ASABIKESHIINH, which means dreamcatcher. ASABIKESHIINH. ASABIKESHIINH. ASABIKESHIINH is the inanimate form of the Anishinaabemowin word for spider, which itself means little net maker, and can easily be remembered by calling to mind the web-like design of the dreamcatcher itself. During the American Indian movement in the 1960s and 70s, a Pan-Indian mindset developed in the United States, and many other tribes accepted the concept of dreamcatchers. They incorporated them into their own cultures as a way of retaining traditional spirituality. This is what I was referencing in the story I shared earlier. Because of the way Becky responded, I feel like I should clarify that Pan-Indian is not a tribe. Rather, it is a philosophical and political approach promoting unity among different Native American, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis groups in the Americas, regardless of tribal distinction and cultural differences. Throughout much of recent U.S. history, American Indians have sometimes organized themselves into more complex political and social units that cross tribal lines, often described by non-Indians as quote-unquote pan-Indian movements. Powwows, particularly on the plains, spread in the early 20th century to celebrate Indianness. Crossing intertribal lines, powwows advanced pan-Indianism through song, dance, regalia, honoring ceremonies, giveaways, and prayers and speeches in native languages and English. According to the Oklahoma Historical Society, powwows initially gained the largest support among the tribes in Oklahoma, but who knows? They might be biased. Winks in Choctaw. Today, powwows continue to draw large numbers of participants across the country. Although coronavirus effectively canceled the 2020 powwow season, natives, ever resilient, found a way to connect with each other through the social distance powwow. Co-founders Dan Simmons, Stephanie Habert, and Whitney Racontra started the movement in March of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic to foster a space for community and cultural preservation, to retain cultural knowledge through indigenous songs, dance, and arts. If you'd like more information on the social distance powwow, you can look them up on Facebook. Before I answer the $100 question about whether or not it's okay for people outside of the Ojibwe Nation to own or use a Dreamcatcher, I want to take a moment and ask everyone to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm still trying to get to the magical 100 subscribers mark for my Vanity Earl, and I need all the help I can get. I also post up annotated episodes of the show so you can skip to the parks you find most interesting or want to share with your friends, just in case you need extra incentive to follow me. Link in the show notes. Let's talk about cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is the adoption or theft of icons, rituals, aesthetic standards, and behavior from one culture or subculture by another. It generally is applied when the subject culture is a minority culture or somehow subordinate in social, political, economic, or military status to the appropriating culture. In short, cultural appropriation is about power and power imbalance. Why does cultural appropriation happen? Well, funny that you should ask. Cultural appropriation is a byproduct of colonization, capitalism, oppression, and assimilation. In the case of cultural appropriation, culture is treated as a natural resource to extract from people of color. Cultural appropriation is profitable. Objects and tradition, but not the people, of marginalized cultures are seen by the dominant culture as edgy, exotic, and desirable, which translates to profits. Cultural appropriation is harmful because it is an extension of centuries of racism, genocide, and oppression. Cultural appropriation treats all aspects of marginalized cultures as free for the taking. This is the same rationale that has been, and still is, used to steal land and resources from native people. Cultural appropriation of ceremonies and objects removes and distorts these traditions and things from their original context and into gross caricatures, disregarding the history and present-day reality of oppression. When non-native people and businesses make and sell Dreamcatchers, that is cultural appropriation. It is not cultural appropriation for tribes and native people to use, make, and sell Dreamcatchers the way they always have. Appreciating does not mean taking. It's the American way, but frankly, it represents the worst of America. You can love the way something looks without feeling entitled to it. If your hair doesn't love to lock, don't force it. If your hair doesn't sustain braids, let it go. Let black women enjoy their heritage and enjoy the hair your DNA gave you. If you really want to appreciate, just tell the beautifully coiffed person whose hair you admire how stunning they look. But do not touch anyone's hair. Don't even ask. If you're in a hiring position, hire black people with natural hair rather than discriminating against them for it. Because yes, this is a real thing that happens. Google Chastity Jones. And before you start talking about Vikings and dreadlocks, honey, just stop. You're embarrassing yourself. In conclusion, there is nothing wrong with appreciating other cultures. However, the very best way to appreciate other cultures is to learn about them and then to be intentional and respectful in how you demonstrate that appreciation. Consider the fact that your attempts to show your appreciation through the adoption of cultural practices that are not your own may seem benign, but very likely carry the lingering specter of colonialism, exploitation, and racism. You can do your part to change the way Western culture commodifies people of color in some really simple ways. Don't buy mass-produced ethnic garb. Buy from the source. Be aware that cultures aren't costumes. Learn all you can. Read, travel, and develop relationships with people who are different from you. Then, demonstrate your appreciation by working for equity and justice in your community, rather than demonstrating your inclusive spirit through the permanence of needle, ink, and flesh. But again, that's just, like my opinion, man. Finally, learn more about your own culture and find the meaning and significance that doubtlessly lies in your own heritage, without converting to the cult of white nationalism. Discover something to claim that honors what is unique in yourself. The people who Europeans and Americans stole from, enslaved, and slaughtered in the name of capital continue to be exploited to this day under the guise of appreciation. You can appreciate diversity without fetishizing it and without contributing to the ongoing financial exploitation of the art and culture of colonized peoples. You don't know what you don't know. But now that you know, learn more! That's why for this episode's spotlight, I am recommending that you check out Decoded with Franchesa Ramsey. She has an excellent episode available on YouTube where she breaks down the difference between cultural appropriation, assimilation, and cultural exchange. Ooh. So without further ado, let's launch into the TLDR portion of the program. Here are my final thoughts on Dreamcatchers. Cultural appropriation is one of those terms that has become almost vulgar to those who are over political correctness and feel like you just can't say anything anymore. People become immediately defensive when presented with the fact that getting a Dreamcatcher tattoo may not be the best choice, or that purchasing quote-unquote cultural artifacts from Urban Outfitters is not actually a thing. What? Dreamcatchers are traditional to the Ojibwe people and have a cultural and spiritual significance to the Ojibwe people and other native communities. When non-native people and businesses make and sell Dreamcatchers, that is cultural appropriation, and it's not okay. It is not cultural appropriation for tribes and native people to use, make, and sell Dreamcatchers the way we always have. It is okay for non-native people or people from other tribes other than the Ojibwe to use Dreamcatchers. The best practice for this is to buy from native makers. I'm going to be putting up a list of awesome native makers that you can purchase from on my blog page, and if you know any native makers who should be added to the list, please reach out to me through email or on social media and let me know so I can get them on that list. We are more than the mistakes we make. I am not perfect. You are not perfect. It is inevitable that we will all make mistakes. Oops. However, it's how we learn from those mistakes that impacts our character. Will we continue to harm someone and their culture when we know it's wrong? I would hope not. We should all be willing to learn and change. Growth is necessary for us all to thrive and evolve. It's my hope that we can all learn to celebrate and respect the differences in our cultures and worldviews. Together, we can work towards positive change by preparing our youth for a multicultural society where all people are respected for who they are and how they wish to be recognized. I want to take a moment to say miigweetch to my newest patron, Bea. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope that you'll enjoy all the behind-the-scenes fun and extra episodes that I'm posting in our exclusive Patreon community. This show would not be possible without the financial support of my patrons, and I owe you my eternal gratitude. Miigweetch. If you also want to support the show and get exclusive goodies, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Sofia Syntaxx. Or not. That's cool too. Just having you here, listening, and being part of the ANGR Squad is an awesome show of support too, and I appreciate you. If you know someone who could benefit from the show, please be sure to share it with them. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, miigweetch, miigweetch. Thank you, and that's all.